Dr. Eliza Chen huddled over her console at the Atacama High-Altitude Observatory, the frigid night air seeping through her worn sweater. 3 months of solitude in the Chilean mountains had yielded nothing extraordinary, until now. "That's impossible," she whispered, adjusting her glasses as she stared at the readout. The spectral analysis of a seemingly ordinary section of deep space showed stars momentarily shifting position, their light bending around something that shouldn't exist. She ran the calibration twice, hands trembling with excitement and disbelief. The quantum fluctuation detector, her own invention that the scientific community had largely dismissed, was registering patterns that defied everything she'd been taught about physics. Something was there, manipulating the very fabric of space-time. She was still downloading the data when black SUVs appeared on the winding mountain road, their headlights cutting through pre-dawn darkness. Within 20 minutes, stern-faced government officials were confiscating her equipment. One moment of foresight saved her. She had already transferred the critical findings to a quantum-encrypted drive hidden in her thermos. "Dr. Chen, you'll be coming with us. This is a matter of national security," stated a woman in a charcoal suit, not bothering with introductions. 72 hours later, after being shuttled between military facilities, Eliza found herself standing in an underground complex that didn't officially exist, facing a wall of monitors displaying her discovery. Only now it had grown tenfold. "Welcome to the Quantum Anomaly Response Team, Dr. Chen." Commander Marcus Reed's voice carried the weight of authority as he stepped forward. 6'2" with shoulders like granite, he bore a jagged scar running from his right temple to jawline that pulsed with an eerie blue luminescence when he passed electronic equipment. "Though I understand your arrival wasn't entirely voluntary. Kidnapping tends to leave that impression," Eliza replied coldly. "Where exactly am I, and why am I looking at my own research?" Reed gestured toward the central screen. "Because what you found isn't just some quantum curiosity. It's growing." The footage showed a tear in space. There was no other way to describe it. Shimmering with impossible colors. Matter near its edges disappeared, converted into energy that the anomaly somehow absorbed without expanding. "It's like watching entropy run backward," whispered Dr. Sanjay Kapoor, the quantum physicist standing nearby. "It defies every law of thermodynamics." "And it's 27 astronomical units from Earth," Reed added grimly. Before Eliza could respond, alarms blared. A junior researcher had attempted to map the anomaly's dimensional boundaries using an experimental resonance scanner. The resulting feedback created a localized cascade, equipment aging decades and seconds before reverting. As consoles exploded around them, Eliza instinctively grabbed the resonance equations, inverted the polarity, and fed them back through the system. The cascade stabilized, then collapsed. Reed stared at her, reassessing. "You just saved a lot of lives, Doctor." "Including yours, Commander," she replied, noticing how his scar had brightened during the cascade. That night, as Eliza examined her new quarters, her tablet chimed with a global alert. Reports were flooding in worldwide. Thousands of people simultaneously dreaming of voices speaking in mathematical equations. She recognized the patterns instantly, the same ones emanating from the anomaly. Whatever waited beyond that tear in reality wasn't just reaching out. It was calling to humanity. And somehow, Eliza understood it was calling specifically to her. The research vessel Quantum Pioneer cut through the darkness of space, 3 weeks into its journey toward the anomaly. Inside the medical bay, Dr. Eliza Chen studied the brain scans of the 3 crew members who had fallen into unexplained comas simultaneously 18 hours earlier. "Their neural activity suggests they're experiencing something," she told Commander Reed. "Not unconsciousness, more like their minds are elsewhere." Reed's expression remained stoic, but his scar pulsed brighter than usual. Like the dreamers back on Earth. Similar patterns, but much more intense. She pointed to the temporal lobe readings. "It's as if." A violent shudder ran through the ship, sending equipment crashing to the floor. The overhead lights flickered, aged to a dull amber. then suddenly brightened to pristine newness. What the hell was that? Reed barked into his communicator. Time distortion, sir, came the frantic reply from the bridge. We've entered the anomaly's outer influence zone. Equipment is aging years in seconds, then reverting. Reed and Eliza rushed to the observation deck. Through the reinforced viewport, the anomaly hung against the black canvas of space, a shimmering fractal tear in reality that seemed to fold in upon itself infinitely. Its edges pulsated with colors that human eyes weren't designed to process. It's beautiful, Eliza whispered. It's deadly, Reed countered. Look at the matter being drawn toward it. Dust and small debris near the anomaly's perimeter spiraled inward, disintegrating into pure energy at the boundary. Yet instead of growing larger from this consumption, the anomaly maintained perfect equilibrium. We need to deploy the quantum probes, Eliza insisted. We might never get another chance to study something like this. Despite the science team's objections about safety, Reed reluctantly authorized the deployment. As the first probe neared the anomaly's edge, the tear suddenly expanded, engulfing a portion of the ship's forward section. Ignoring Reed's direct order to evacuate, Eliza raced toward the affected area. The corridor ahead of her stretched and compressed impossibly, distance becoming meaningless. She reached a bulkhead door that separated normal space from whatever lay beyond. Chen, do not open that door. Reed's voice crackled through her communicator. That's an order. She hesitated for only a moment before overriding the lock. Some questions demand answers, Commander. The door slid open, and reality fractured around her. Eliza experienced 7 subjective minutes in which she existed across multiple realities simultaneously. Her consciousness expanded beyond her body, perceiving dimensions stacked upon dimensions. Within this impossible space, crystalline entities of pure mathematical thought surrounded her, communicating directly into her mind through probability waves. We have searched for beings capable of perception across boundaries. You are the first to answer. When Reed finally reached her, only 23 seconds had passed in normal time. He found her floating unconscious, suspended in midair by forces unknown. As he pulled her back to safety, her skin began to illuminate with equations written in particles of light, mathematical expressions no human had ever conceived. The bulkhead door slammed shut as the anomaly's expansion receded. Eliza awoke in Reed's arms, her eyes wide with understanding and terror. They're coming through, she gasped, gripping his uniform. The doorway was built, Commander, engineered by beings who exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously. But it's failing, breaking down at the quantum level. They're desperate. Who are they? What do they want? Reed demanded, noticing how the luminous equations on her skin shifted and rearranged themselves. They call themselves the Entanglers. Her voice took on a strange harmonic quality. They've chosen me as their conduit because my mind has the right kind of chaos. Reed helped her to her feet, unsettled by the change in her. And what happens if this doorway fails completely? Eliza's gaze drifted to the viewport where the anomaly shimmered. Then something far worse than interdimensional visitors will break through. Something that consumes the fundamental fabric of reality itself. She placed her glowing hand against the glass, and for just a moment, the anomaly pulsed in perfect synchronization with the equations on her skin. They're not invaders, Marcus. They're refugees. The quarantine lab hummed with monitoring equipment as scientists observed Dr. Eliza Chen through reinforced glass. The luminescent equations covering her skin pulsed in complex patterns, occasionally shifting into new configurations that the most advanced AI systems could only partially interpret. 47 new mathematical theorems identified so far, Dr. Kapoor announced, not bothering to hide his excitement. Concepts that would have taken humanity centuries to discover independently. Commander Reed stood at the observation window, his scared face reflected in the glass. And what's the cost to her humanity? Inside the chamber, Eliza stared at equations only she could see floating in the air. Her consciousness expanded in ways impossible to articulate. She could perceive quantum probabilities as tangible realities, all potential states existing simultaneously. I need access to the quantum computing lab, she demanded when Reed entered wearing a hazmat suit. The entanglers are trying to share critical information, but human language lacks the structures to contain it. The Joint Chiefs have ordered your indefinite quarantine, Reed replied, his voice distorted through the suit's speakers. You're changing, Doctor. They're concerned about containment. Eliza laughed, a sound containing too many harmonics to come from human vocal cords. Containment. The anomaly has grown another 18%. Soon, there won't be anything to contain. She pressed her glowing palm against the glass separating them. My transformation is intentional, Marcus. The entanglers chose me because my neurological architecture is compatible with their communication methods. But I need better tools to complete the cipher. Later that night, against direct orders, Reed used his security clearance to transfer Eliza to the quantum computing facility. There they met Dr. Imani Okoro, a brilliant sinolinguist who had discovered patterns in the equations matching ancient symbols found in archaeological sites worldwide. These aren't just mathematical expressions, Okoro explained, projecting comparisons on the lab's main screen. They're conceptual frameworks, a language that expresses reality itself. Working feverishly, the three developed a neural interface that could theoretically translate quantum communication directly into human comprehension. But when Eliza connected to the prototype, her consciousness nearly dissipated across dimensions. Eliza, Reed shouted, ripping the interface from her head. For a moment, their minds linked, Reed's memories flooding into her, classified missions investigating similar phenomena. The explosion that gave him his quantum-sensitive scar, the gradual realization that his wound somehow connected him to whatever existed beyond normal reality. You're like me, she whispered as she stabilized. You've been touched by the outside too. Reed didn't deny it, which is why I know how dangerous this is. The second attempt succeeded with Reed monitoring the connection, stabilizing the dimensional frequencies. Eliza's consciousness expanded outward, making contact with entities so alien that her mind struggled to interpret them. Crystalline structures of pure mathematical thought, existing in 11 simultaneous dimensions. We are the entanglers, they communicated. We have watched your species for millennia. Why contact us now? Eliza asked through the interface. The entropy cascade approaches. Only human consciousness possesses the necessary perceptual chaos. Images flooded her mind, the entangler's home dimension being consumed by something that defied comprehension, a wave of perfect disorder that unmade reality at its most fundamental level. Your species evolved differently. You embrace contradictions. You perceive both particle and wave simultaneously. You accept logical inconsistencies. This cognitive dissonance, this chaos, is what we require. When Eliza disconnected, she found Reed and Okoro staring at her transformed face. The equations had sunk beneath her skin, reshaping her features with subtle geometric perfection. They're not just trying to communicate, she explained, her voice carrying undertones that made the laboratory equipment vibrate in resonance. They need our help. All possible universes face extinction from an entropy wave that consumes ordered states. And why should that matter to us? Reed questioned, though his scar pulsed brighter as if responding to her words. Because it originated in our universe, Commander, Eliza replied. From a human experiment conducted long before our recorded history began. Global reports of quantum anomalies multiplied daily. In Sao Paulo, gravity reversed for 6 minutes in a 10-block radius, sending cars and debris floating upward before crashing back to Earth. Tokyo residents woke to find their electronics playing broadcasts from what linguists confirmed was their own city, 3 weeks in the future. In Cairo, an entire apartment complex momentarily quantum-tunneled, appearing briefly in downtown Montreal before snapping back to Egypt. At the command center, Commander Reed studied the global incident map with growing concern. The occurrences formed a distinct pattern, concentric rings expanding outward from the primary anomaly's location in space. It's accelerating, Dr. Kapoor confirmed, pointing to the exponential curve on his tablet. Reality's coherence is breaking down. Reed's communicator buzzed with an emergency alert. Research outpost Helios has gone dark, he announced to the room. Last transmission reported spatial distortions beyond containment protocols. Eliza looked up from her workstation, her iris patterns now containing geometrical structures that were distinctly non-human. We need to go there. Now. That's a military decision, Reed countered. It's a survival decision, she replied, her voice resonating at frequencies that made the overhead lights flicker. The outpost was closest to the anomaly. What's happening there will happen everywhere soon. 12 hours later, a tactical team led by Reed approached the outpost in a specially shielded transport, with Eliza insisting on joining despite military protocols. The facility's exterior appeared normal until they reached the main airlock. The perfectly circular door had somehow transformed into an impossible shape that curved in directions eyes couldn't follow. Non-Euclidean geometry, Eliza whispered. Space itself is being rewritten. Inside, horror awaited them. The corridors twisted into spiraling configurations that somehow connected rooms that should have been hundreds of meters apart. Worse were the scientists, or what remained of them. Human bodies merged with equipment, flesh and metal, and plastic fused together in grotesque biomechanical sculptures. Yet impossibly, horribly, they were still conscious. Please, end this, begged a woman whose torso had melded with a quantum computer, her eyes blinking from within the transformed flesh. We tried to measure the anomaly's internal structure. It changed us. As Reed's team placed euthanasia charges, the facility's systems suddenly activated. Screens displayed fractal patterns that shifted in perfect harmony with the luminous equations visible beneath Eliza's skin. Something's coming through, she gasped, her eyes wide as the air in the central laboratory began to crystallize into geometric patterns. 3 entities manifested. Beings of pure mathematical structure, their forms constantly reconfiguring in hyperdimensional space. The entanglers had breached the divide between universes. Their beauty was heartbreaking. Perfect crystalline structures that contained infinite complexity, refracting light from dimensions humans couldn't perceive. But in our physical reality, their forms immediately began deteriorating, fractal patterns collapsing. Reed raised his weapon instinctively. Stand down, whatever you are. No. Eliza threw herself between them, her body partially transparent as if she existed in multiple states simultaneously. They're dying in our physics. One of the entanglers reached toward her with an appendage that branched into endless recursive patterns. When it touched Eliza's forehead, her eyes illuminated with the same mathematical light that constituted the being's form. Both screamed, a harmonic cascade that shattered every screen in the facility. The dying entangler collapsed, its consciousness partially merging with Eliza's. Through their connection, every human present experienced a vision. Galaxies being consumed by a wave of perfect darkness that reduced ordered states to primal chaos. Civilizations across countless realities extinguished as the fundamental structure of existence unraveled. When the vision ended, Reed found Eliza unconscious on the floor, the remaining entanglers hovering protectively over her. His scar burned blue-white, somehow resonating with their presence. We must evacuate now, ordered the military physician, scanning Eliza's transforming body. Her DNA is reconfiguring at the molecular level. As they carried her to the transport, Reed looked back at the 2 surviving entanglers, who followed at a distance, their deteriorating forms leaving trails of luminous particles. Why Earth? He asked them directly, surprising himself. Of all possible worlds, why come to us? Though they couldn't speak, an answer formed in his mind with crystal clarity. Because the end began here, and only humans can unmake what humans created. The medical bay hummed with unfamiliar energy as Eliza floated 6 inches above her bed, suspended by forces that defied conventional physics. The partial merger with the dying entangler had accelerated her transformation exponentially. Fractal patterns rippled beneath her skin, occasionally manifesting as three-dimensional equations that hovered around her. Her brainwave patterns are impossible, whispered the neurologist. She's processing information in quantum states. Reed watched through the isolation glass, his scar burning with increasing intensity as he neared her. Can she hear us? I hear everything, Eliza replied, her eyes still closed. The background radiation of the universe, the quantum vibration of atoms, the mathematical song that binds reality together. Her eyes opened, now entirely geometric patterns of light rather than human irises. And memories, ancient memories encoded in our DNA. She extended her hand toward Reed. I need to show you. Against medical advice, Reed entered the room and took her transformed hand. The moment their skin touched, his scar erupted with blue fire that spread across his face in fractal patterns. Their minds linked, and knowledge flooded between them. Knowledge buried so deep in human genetic memory that no conventional science could have uncovered it. 72 hours later, the quantum pioneer entered Antarctic airspace with Reed and Eliza leading a desperate expedition. Using coordinates extracted from her shared consciousness with the Entangler, they located a geomagnetic anomaly beneath 3 kilometers of ice that no previous survey had detected. It should be impossible, muttered Dr. Okoro, as they deployed ground-penetrating radar. The ice core samples prove this area hasn't been exposed for at least 400,000 years. Try 20 million, Eliza corrected, her voice resonating strangely. What we're looking for was already ancient when the first primate ancestors appeared. Specialized drilling equipment cut through the ice with surprising ease, as if something below was helping clear their path. At 2,839 meters, they broke through into an immense cavern that could not exist. A city stretched below them, preserved in perfect condition within a quantum stasis field. Its architecture defied Euclidean geometry, with structures that seemed to fold into themselves, yet expanded to proportions that confused the human eye. The technology visible throughout the complex was millions of years beyond current human capabilities. My God, whispered Kapoor. Who built this? As the team descended into the alien yet strangely familiar ruins, their equipment registered no deterioration, no dust, as if the city existed outside normal time flow. At the central plaza, a massive holographic projection activated at Eliza's approach, responding to something in her transformed DNA. The image showed humans, recognizably human, yet subtly different, operating technology indistinguishable from magic. The recording spoke in no language anyone recognized, yet everyone understood perfectly. This final archive is our penance and our hope. Before the quantum collapse, we achieved what some called godhood. We mastered matter, energy, space, and time. We spread across 1,000 worlds and reshaped reality itself to suit our needs. In our hubris, we created the Entropy Reshaper, a weapon designed to rewrite the quantum signature of reality. When activated against our enemies, it created a cascading collapse of coherent states across all possible dimensions. The hologram showed the weapon's activation, and the horrifying wave of decay that spread outward, consuming galaxies, then jumping between dimensions like a cancer metastasizing through the multiverse. Those of us who survived made a desperate choice. We reset our species, returning our descendants to primitive states, embedding the solution deep within your collective unconscious. You were designed to rediscover quantum physics at precisely the right moment, when the entropy wave completed its cycle through adjacent realities and returned to its point of origin. As the message continued, armed security forces swarmed into the chamber, a covert military faction Reed didn't recognize. Their leader stepped forward, weapon raised. Dr. Chen, Commander Reed, you're being detained under Global Security Directive 31C. This discovery has been classified. The ancient technology will be secured for those deemed worthy of survival. The first shots were fired as Reed moved to shield Eliza. Crimson blood bloomed across his chest as he collapsed into her arms, his scar pulsing weakly as his life ebbed away. "No," Eliza whispered, cradling his body. As her grief overwhelmed her, something awakened within her altered DNA, genetic triggers embedded eons ago by humanity's forgotten ancestors. Her body illuminated with geometric precision, and time itself paused around them. She placed her hand over Reed's wound, extracting the quantum signature of the injury from reality, rewriting his cellular structure at the fundamental level. As he gasped back to life, his scar expanded across his entire body in glowing blue lattices, a complementary pattern to her own transformation. "What have you done to me?" he whispered. "What was always meant to happen," she replied. "We're becoming what humanity once was, and what it must be again to survive what's coming." News of the Antarctic discovery spread globally despite military containment efforts. Leaked footage of the ancient city and fragments of the holographic message appeared on every network and social platform. Humanity faced an existential crisis of identity. Everything about human history required re-examination. In Washington, D.C., protesters surrounded the White House, demanding full disclosure. Beijing declared martial law as quantum disturbances multiplied across Asia. The Vatican called for a worldwide day of prayer while simultaneously convening physicists to reconcile faith with these new revelations. Reed stood at the command center window, watching the chaos unfold on multiple screens. His transformation had stabilized into something new. His scar now a network of luminous blue circuitry extending across his entire body, granting him unprecedented control over electromagnetic fields. He could feel the digital transmissions flowing through the air around him. "It's worse than we predicted," Dr. Kapoor reported, rushing into the room. "The quantum anomaly has expanded to visible size from Earth. Telescopes worldwide are tracking it." On cue, the main screen displayed a live feed from the Atacama Observatory, Eliza's former workplace. A new star shone in the night sky, iridescent and impossibly beautiful, shifting through colors human eyes had never witnessed before. "How long?" Reed asked. "At current expansion rates, 3 weeks before Earth enters its influence zone," Kapoor replied. "Less if acceleration continues." A commotion erupted from the adjacent laboratory where Eliza and the surviving entanglers worked to develop a solution. Reed found them huddled around a monitoring station, watching with horror as military vessels approached the anomaly. "They're going to attack it," Eliza said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the equipment vibrate. "They believe conventional weapons can destroy it." "That's suicide," Reed responded, immediately opening a secure channel to Space Command. "General Hayashi, abort the strike immediately. You cannot destroy a quantum anomaly with nuclear weapons." The general's face remained impassive on the screen. "These orders come directly from the Joint Security Council, Commander. 26 nations have agreed. This threat must be eliminated by any means necessary." They watched in helpless horror as the fleet launched its payload, then vanished in a blinding flash as the warheads detonated. The anomaly briefly contracted before expanding exponentially, now visible to the naked eye from Earth's surface without telescopic aid. 3 days, whispered one of the entanglers in its newly acquired human speech, a dissonant, multi-layered voice. "The decay accelerates." Within hours, coordinated military coups erupted across major powers as hardline factions seized control, declaring the ancient technology would save only selected portions of humanity. Reed's team became fugitives overnight, forced to evacuate as special forces raided their facility. Even more disturbing were the changes manifesting in the general population. Children worldwide began reciting complex quantum equations in their sleep. Adults over 40 seemed immune to the anomaly's influence, while younger generations reported increasing awareness of multiple realities overlapping with their own. "The ancient genetic programming is activating," Eliza explained as their transport raced through the night toward a hidden fallback location. "Our ancestors designed us to recognize the signs when the entropy wave returned." Reed noticed her appearance had changed again, less human, more luminous, as if she existed partially in another dimension. And the solution? Did your merger with the Entangler reveal how to stop it? Fragments only, she admitted. We need the complete knowledge, scattered across specific locations where the Ancient Ones left pieces of the solution. The closest is in the Mariana Trench, a quantum vault keyed to activated human DNA. Their convoy screeched to a halt as the road ahead warped impossibly, folding upward before their eyes. From the spatial distortion emerged humanoid figures that moved with uncanny precision, their bodies occasionally phasing out of normal spacetime. Quantum hunters, gasped the Entangler. The military has adapted the ancient technology already. Reed stepped from the vehicle, the electricity arcing between his fingertips. Get Eliza to the extraction point. I'll hold them off. As the convoy diverted, Reed faced the approaching hunters. The mathematical patterns within his scar expanded outward, encompassing his entire body in blue fire. He raised his hands, and for the first time, fully embraced what he was becoming. Lightning erupted from his transformed flesh, reality itself bending around the discharge. The quantum hunters distorted and fragmented under the assault, but more were emerging from the spatial tear. In low Earth orbit, the anomaly pulsed in perfect synchronization, with Reed's desperate battle below, as if the fate of one man and the universe itself were mysteriously entwined. The submersible descended into the abyssal darkness of the Mariana Trench, lights illuminating nothing but the endless void of deep ocean. Inside the cramped vessel, Eliza's transformed body glowed with sufficient intensity to render the external floodlights unnecessary. Reed sat beside her, his own luminous patterns pulsing in counterpoint to hers. We're approaching coordinates, Dr. Okoro announced from the navigation console. 10,898 meters, and still descending. Their team had dwindled to a handful of loyalists and the two surviving Entanglers. After Reed's confrontation with the quantum hunters, they had barely escaped with their lives. Their connection to the outside world had gone silent 3 days ago, when the first major quantum distortions hit population centers. New York City now existed in 7 simultaneous dimensional states, each version slightly different from the others. There, Eliza pointed through the viewport at what appeared to be a seamless section of the ocean floor. The vault exists in a phased state, partially out of sync with our spacetime. As if responding to her presence, the seemingly ordinary patch of seabed rippled and reconfigured, revealing a structure of impossible architecture, a spiraling crystalline tower extending both upward into the water and, impossibly, downward into the solid crust below. How do we access it? Reed asked, wincing as fresh patterns etched themselves painfully across his transforming flesh. We don't, Eliza replied, placing her hand against the viewport. It accesses us. The submersible shuddered as an unseen force caught them in its grip, pulling them toward the structure. Instead of colliding with its surface, they passed through as if the solid crystal were merely a hologram. Inside waited a chamber that defied the crushing pressures of the deep, filled with technology identical to what they had discovered in Antarctica. A holographic terminal activated at Eliza's approach, scanning her transformed DNA before projecting a complete schematic of the solar system. At the location of the quantum anomaly, a complex mathematical model displayed the intersecting boundaries of multiple dimensions. The solution requires a quantum counterwave, explained one of the entanglers, its crystalline form partially stabilized by the ancient technology surrounding them, generated at precise coordinates within the anomaly itself. Eliza studied the schematics, her consciousness expanding to grasp concepts that her partly human mind still struggled to contain. We would need to harness the energy of a star to generate sufficient power. The sun? Asked Okoro. No, Reed interjected, understanding flowing through his transformed neural pathways. We use the anomaly itself. It's consuming matter and converting it to energy in a perfect equilibrium state. Eliza nodded. If we can reverse that process at critical junctures, we create a cascade effect. Finished the Entangler. The counterwave would propagate through all affected dimensions. The hologram shifted to display human figures entering the anomaly. Their forms underwent a radical transformation, becoming conduits for the counterwave itself. Human pilots? Reed asked, though he already knew the answer. The counterwave must be carried by consciousness capable of perceiving across dimensional boundaries. Eliza confirmed. Only partially transformed humans can navigate the spaces between realities. As the teen worked feverishly to decode the ancient instructions, Eliza accessed the submersible's communications array, bypassing military jamming to broadcast a single message worldwide. A series of mathematical equations that activated dormant neural pathways in humans whose genetics had already begun responding to the anomaly. Within hours, transformed individuals from across the globe converged on their location, guided by the awakened ancient programming in their DNA. Each bore unique patterns of luminous circuitry across their skin, each representing a fragment of the solution. What Eliza kept from them, what she had discovered in the deepest part of the ancient knowledge, was the cost. The transformed pilots would become living conduits for the counterwave, their consciousness scattered across realities forever. Reed found her alone in the vessel's tiny observation deck, staring up through the water at the distorted light from above. "You're planning to be one of the pilots," he stated, not a question. She turned to him, her once human eyes now windows into mathematical infinity. "I'm the only one whose transformation is complete enough to lead the sequence." "Then I'm coming too," he said, taking her transformed hand in his. The patterns across their skin aligned and interlocked, creating a more complex whole. She smiled sadly. "I knew you would say that, but you should know the truth. We won't be coming back, Marcus. What will become? It won't be human anymore." "I know," he replied simply. "But whatever we become, we'll face it together." Above them, visible even through miles of ocean, the anomaly pulsed like a newborn star, beautiful, terrible, and running out of time. The launch facility in the Atacama Desert operated under skies distorted by the anomaly's growing influence. What had begun as a new star now dominated half the visible sky, a fractal tear in reality that pulsed with impossible colors and geometries that human eyes struggled to process. 12 vessels stood on the launch pad, their design unlike any spacecraft humanity had previously conceived. Created using recovered ancient technology, they resembled crystalline seeds, their surfaces etched with the same mathematical patterns that now marked their pilots' transformed flesh. Eliza stood before the assembled volunteers, 27 humans in various stages of quantum transformation. Some, like Reed, displayed luminous circuitry across their skin. Others had begun to phase partially out of normal space-time, their forms occasionally shifting into crystalline structures before returning to human appearance. "What we attempt today was designed millions of years ago by our ancestors," she addressed them, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with the vessels themselves. "We are the fail-safe, genetically programmed to awaken at this precise moment in history." Around the world, billions watched through any functioning technology as humanity made its last stand. The entropy wave had accelerated beyond all projections. Matter had begun spontaneously losing coherence across the globe, solid objects dissolving into constituent particles before reforming in impossible configurations. Dr. Okoro approached Eliza with the neural synchronization crown, the device that would link all pilots into a unified consciousness. Once synchronized, you'll have approximately 12 minutes to reach the dimensional coordinates before your individual identities dissolve completely, she explained, her eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. After that, we become something else, Reed finished, placing his hand on her shoulder in farewell. Something necessary. As the pilots prepared to board, military forces from the hardline factions launched a desperate final attack on the facility, believing control of the ancient technology was their only salvation. In the chaos that followed, Eliza turned to Reed one last time. "I need to tell you something," she said, the mathematical patterns beneath her skin pulsing with increasing intensity. "I've calculated the probability matrices. This plan has a 31% chance of success." Reed smiled, his transformed eyes reflecting the fractured sky above. "Better odds than we deserve, given what our species once did to the multiverse." Their hands clasped, patterns aligning into more complex structures. Words seemed inadequate for what passed between them in that moment. A connection that transcended conventional human emotion, yet contained within it everything that made humanity worth preserving. The vessels launched simultaneously, rising toward the quantum anomaly on trajectories that made no sense in Euclidean geometry. As they approached the Terran reality, Earth's remaining functional satellites transmitted the historic moment to every corner of the globe. Inside the lead vessel, the Lisa activated the neural synchronization. 27 individual consciousnesses merged into a single collective awareness that expanded beyond the confines of physical form. They could perceive the multiverse as interconnected lattices of probability, billions of realities stacked upon each other like pages in an infinite book. The anomaly engulfed them, and physical laws ceased to have meaning. They navigated through spaces between dimensions where time flowed in multiple directions simultaneously. At the coordinates specified in the ancient instructions, they positioned themselves in a precise geometric formation. From Earth, observers witnessed the vessels transform into pure light, arranging themselves into an immense, multidimensional pattern within the heart of the anomaly. For one breathtaking moment, nothing happened. Then reality itself shuddered. The counterwave began as a ripple of perfect order emanating from the formation. It spread outward through the anomaly, temporarily revealing the trillions of interconnected realities beyond normal perception. As it reached the entropy wave, the two forces collided in a silent explosion of mathematical beauty. Across Earth, the quantum distortions briefly intensified, then began to stabilize. Matter regained coherence. The tear in reality slowly contracted, the impossible colors fading until only a faint iridescence remained where the anomaly had dominated the sky. The pilots were gone. Their physical forms and individual identities dissolved into the counterwave itself. Yet something of their collective consciousness remained, spread across the quantum fabric that connected all possible realities. 3 months later, as humanity began rebuilding from the quantum catastrophe, the first dreams came. People worldwide reported identical visions of crystalline beings exploring realms beyond human comprehension, led by two entities whose patterns seemed vaguely familiar. One blue, one gold, their structures eternally intertwined. Scientists built receiving stations in an attempt to interpret these quantum dreams. The messages were fragmentary but clear. The pilots had become guardians of the boundaries between realities, ensuring the entropy wave could never form again. The final transmission, received simultaneously by billions of dreamers, contained a simple message encoded in the same mathematical language that had once covered Elisa's skin. We remain. We watch. We remember what it meant to be human. And someday, when you are ready to join us among the stars, we will be waiting.